Good morning and welcome. We're going to wait for Facebook to kick in, and then we'll start our class. Take a moment, wait till everyone gets on. You could put in the comment where you're watching from, and we'll be ready to start shortly. Welcome, welcome. So good morning once again. Begin with a story about the Maggid of Mizrich. He was the successor of the Baal Shem Tov and the second Rebbe of the Hasidic movement. And he had many students, many close disciples, but it was not so easy to be accepted into that inner circle of people who were committed, who were at a certain level in their piety, at a certain level in their Torah knowledge. And many different scholars of the time came to try to be accepted, if you will, into his circle of disciples. Now, to clarify, he loved everyone and he gave attention to everyone and he helped them however he can, regardless of their level, just like the Baal Shem Tov. However, to understand and really connect on that inner circle level was something which not everybody was able to do. So those that were not able to, many of them just went home, they left. But there were others that said, we may not be able to be considered as the disciples or the Talmidim of the Maggid. However, we do want to hang out there. So what we're going to do is we'll help. We'll do what we can to allow ourselves to stay there in Mizrich, which is where the Maggid was, and we'll help out. So what they would do is they would bring wood for the fireplace. They would make sure that the oven was warm, so that the whole room was warm, and all those that were studying would be able to study. And these fellows that were not accepted in being the inner circle of the Maggid of Mizrich, at least they said, we'll hang out there and we'll observe. We'll see the Maggid, we'll see the other great disciples, we'll learn a little something. And clearly they weren't so simple, they were pretty knowledgeable themselves. One day, one of these disciples asked the other, he says, in the Parsha, which is this week, it talks about Avraham Avinu passing the ultimate test. Avraham Avinu had many challenges in his life. Hashem tested him multiple times, 10 times. He passed every single one of them. But the final test, the 10th one, is when Hashem tells Avram, take your only son and bring him for an offering on the Akedah, the binding of Yitzchak. And it's considered to be this great heroic act that Avraham Avinu was willing and ready to give up his son for Hashem. It's Mesiras Nefesh, it's self-sacrifice at the highest level. It's so important that we say it every single day in davening. We begin our davening towards the very beginning. Doesn't matter if it's a weekday or if it's Yom Kippur or any day of the week of the year. We always bring this out because we want to tell Hashem, look, in the merit of Avram and his commitment to you, you should answer our prayers or forgive us or be compassionate with us and so on and so forth, all because in the merit that Avraham Avinu was willing and not willing, he overcame this test and took his son to the binding of the Akedah. So this fellow who was hanging out by the Maggid, they were called warmers because they were warming the oven, that's what they would do. He said, why is it such a big deal? Let's look at history. You have a lot of people that gave up their lives for Hashem. Take Chana and her 7 sons. It's not one son, it's 7. And take Rabbi Akiva. Go later in history, you have so many different, unfortunately, situations where Jewish people were persecuted, and many Jews were ready to have Mesiras Nefesh. Why is it that Avraham is this great hero of what he did? Okay, it's a big deal. We're not going to minimize it, but it's not unique. So they're listening, and he says, "I'll tell you the answer." Again, these people that weren't accepted into the inner circle weren't that simple. They were quite learned and knowledgeable. And he said, "I'll tell you why. Because Avraham Avinu was the first. And when you're the pioneer, it's not accepted yet. It's not cool. No one does. You're paving the path. It takes a lot of courage, especially something as drastic as self-sacrifice. And Avraham Avinu did it. He had no one to learn from. He didn't have an example of someone that came before him. And he said, this is what you do. Nothing will stop you. You have to be committed. He did it. So being the first carries a very special recognition to it, and takes a lot more than if you're a little later down the line. So as great as Rabbi Akiva was with his Mesiras Nefesh, as all of those in history that gave their lives for Hashem were, and we're not minimizing it, but they weren't the first. They look up at Avraham Avinu and they say, look, he did it. This is the right way to do it. It's been done before. And because of that, we laud Avram as this tremendous hero, and we mention it every day in davening because it's so special. The other people, the other warmers, the Maggid's Shul and Mizrich, they were listening, and another guy said, listen, I hear you, but I'm going to give you a different answer of why Avraham Avinu was considered to be so special forever because of this, although he's not the only one that had Mesiras Nefesh. He said there's something called the zrizus, which means alacrity, quick, the opposite of procrastination. When Hashem told Avram, take your son and bring him for the Akedah, he could have said, okay, and then send out invitations and make a goodbye party, scheduled for 6 months from now. And then they're going to have this maybe one trip with him together to spend some more time together. Then they'll schedule a date when they're going to start their journey, and take his time and eventually get there. People do a lot of things they don't want to do because you have to. But the things that you want to do, the things that you're excited about, you rush to do them. You get up, you do them right away. You don't procrastinate. You're into it because you like it. It's fun. It's enjoyable. And when you want to do something, you run to do it. The stuff that we don't want to do, that we have no choice about, we delay it. We push it off until there's no choice. There's a deadline. There's pressure. Okay, fine. So we'll get to it. Avraham Avinu didn't just say, fine, Hashem, if you want, my hands are tied, I'm going to do it. But he jumped up the next morning early. It says, Vayashkem Avraham Babeker. Avraham Avinu woke up really early in the morning, and he went and he did it. The next day, he didn't push it off. He didn't delay. That's a big deal. When you do Mesiras Nefesh reluctantly, because you had no choice, and it was the last resort, and you really do not want to, and so on, it is what it is, and it's still considered to be Mesiras Nefesh. But you can't compare that, he said, to Avraham Avinu's Jesus. He ran to my son right away, which is a huge sacrifice. There was another one of these warmers that were there, and he looked at him and he said, let me give you the answer. It's true, he was the first. That's beautiful. It's true that he was quick about it and he didn't waste time and delay. But let me tell you something. A lot of people have Mesiras Nefesh because they get it. It makes sense. God is right. He's the only deity. I cannot worship idols. And if they tell me to convert out, or they tell me to denounce my faith, or they tell me to stop being, observing, then I got to give up my life. It's just the way it works. It's almost I say almost because ultimately it's not so rational, but it's an explainable decision. This is the right thing to do according to what I'm learning, according to what I understand, and this is how you have to live. Avraham Avinu was in a bind because he was telling the world at that time, and quite successfully, that there's only one God. You have to worship Hashem. So he's telling them one day that this Hashem blessed me with a child, which was a miraculous thing, and people were wowed. This guy's for real. He had a kid when he was 100 years old. So we believe what he's telling us. Then he went on, and Avraham Avinu told them, quoting Hashem, that this child is going to have many descendants through Yitzchak. And They're going to be multitudes like the stars in the heaven and the sand in the sea, and everything's beautiful. And people are following him, and he's gaining ground, and the mission is being accomplished. We're spreading the monotheism concept in the world. Now Hashem comes along and he says, "Okay, take this son and kill him." What's he going to say to the people? In other words, Hashem, we have something going here. We're trying to convince people to worship you, to believe in you. If I'm going to come back now and say that he's not here, why? Because Hashem told me, they're going to laugh. And they're going to say, okay, so there is no Hashem, which God changes his mind. If he told you that you're going to have a son and this is the future, so then why would he tell you to kill you? So either way, something doesn't add up here. So it makes sense because I have to worship Hashem. So therefore, if it means give up your life, I'll give up my life. That's not, it's not enough. It's not going to do it because there is no logic here. It doesn't make sense. And Rabbi said, I'm not doing it because it makes sense. I'm doing it because I believe in Hashem. If he said do it, I do it. My mind, the human mind, is limited. And there will be contradictions in life, and there will be things that don't make sense. I can't have a relationship with Hashem that ends where my mind ends, because then it's an ending relationship, and it changes. Today I understand one way, tomorrow I have a different idea, a third theory. It's constantly evolving. My relationship with Hashem, said Avraham, is beyond logic. It's a faith relationship. It's an inherent, essential connection. And if Hashem says go, go. It doesn't make sense. People are going to laugh. They're going to question me and probably stop believing in what I believe in, which I tried so hard to get them to come around. It was my life mission. But Hashem said so you do it. And that, the third warmer, and the Maggid's yeshiva said, in his shul said, is why it's so great. Because it didn't make any sense. It was working against everything that he's trying to do for Hashem. It's not like I had some personal interest. I'm in this, you tell me, jump in a fire. You tell me go to Israel. You tell me there's a hunger and his wife gets kidnapped. Every stage and wars and crazy things. But all those things, they align, because when you're victorious, the people see it and they say, great, this guy's for real. But what I'm about to do now is going to basically take away everything that we came to till now. And the Rabbi talks about this and says that these three, quote, warmers, it wasn't that they disagreed with the other person or that it was contradictory or so on. The idea here is that each one had a different mode or emphasis in their service of Hashem. One of them, it was about being the first. In other words, it's not always popular, it's not always clear, but you do it because it's the right thing to do. And the other one, his emphasis and his focus was to work on himself, to have zrizos, to do things quickly and to not to procrastinate and get things done even when you don't want to have that enjoyment and passion in it. And the third one, it was don't let your mind get in the way. So each person has their area in their Avodas Hashem, in their service of Hashem that they're working on, and they see it through that lens. They're all correct. Rabbi had all these qualities, of course, being the first, being quick, and being beyond logic. But each person has their thing that they focus on, they're trying to work with. Fine. Now, this explains another question. When Hashem tells Avraham to go to the Akedah, he says, Kach no es bincha, please take your son. What's this please? All the other requests that Hashem had, you don't find some kind of begging. And this word no is not just semantics, please, but whenever Torah says no, it's a begging expression. Why is he begging? Because Hashem said, if you are not going to pass this test, then they will say that all the other 9 were not real. He did it, but he wasn't committed. And we know that the Satan came to Hashem and said, everyone's raving Avraham, he's so great and everything. It's all nice and fine. Ask him for his son. That he'll never do. So please do it. So they're not going to discount all the other 9 tests if you don't pass this one. And the question is, really? If you get 9 out of 10, it's pretty good. If you get 6 out of 10, it's good. Especially these types of challenges. So he passed almost every single one. I missed one. Therefore, you're saying the other 9 are worthless? They're going to say the other ones don't count? The answer is what we just said, that the other 9 you could explain logically. What's he going to do? Nimrod said, worship an idol or throwing it in the fire. If he worships the idol and he comes back to his people, they're going to say, what happened? You changed your mind? You got scared? It's not so real. It's only real till it hurts. He can't come back. I mean, he could, but it was working in such a manner that if I come back, then it's over. I may as well close shop. So he made a conscious decision. He didn't, but potentially you could say that he made a rational decision. He came to the conclusion, for business, I can't. It's not going to work. So there is no choice. Okay. And the same thing is all the other stuff. If he's going to start questioning or not doing what Hashem wants, then all of his followers and everything that he's trying to build, it's going to backfire. When it came to this particular test, it's the other way around. If he does it backfires. No one knows that Hashem told him. His wife didn't know. Sarah didn't know. He could just say, yes, God, thank you. We'll think about it. We'll get back to you. 6 to 8 weeks. I'll send you a postcard. Right? He could have said, no one will know. And I'm on your team, Hashem. But if he did that, then everyone, the angels and so on, will say, okay, Hashem, Avraham just did this because it fits with his agenda. So all those things that he did, they're not real. It's a business decision. Now that he does, okay, this Yitzchak, now we know it's real. It's the same thing with what the Talmud of the Maggid is saying, that it's because it didn't make sense. A Yid's relationship to Hashem is not a logical one. And let's take this concept and go to the beginning of the parsha, which is the mimer that we're starting. And that is, before Hashem went to destroy Sodom and Amorah, he said, am I going to hide this from Avraham? And he went and he told Avraham about it. He sent Malachim to let him know that he's going to destroy the cities of Sodom because their cry reached the heavens and he can't allow this to continue and so on. And Avraham Avinu, who came to Hashem, it says the term of vayigash. And vayigash is a term that's used when you speak harshly, when you're ready for battle. It's not an approach to have a conversation. It's coming full force, attack. Avram was so committed, 10 tests, do anything for Hashem, doesn't make any sense, etc. He comes and he's ready to wage a war with Hashem, so to speak, not wage a war, but to really confront him. Why do we say that? Why does he do that? And he comes and he says, how could he do this, Hashem? You're questioning Hashem. You're Avraham. You're so committed. You believe. You don't ask any questions. You do whatever Hashem wants, even your own son. And now you don't understand why Hashem is punishing some cities that you know are evil people. And you're coming and you're not just asking a question. By the way, maybe you could explain to me what's the deal. You're coming and you're confronting and quite harshly. And you're not taking no for an answer. So here's the very same Avraham, and he's questioning Hashem, and he's arguing with Hashem, and he's pushing back. And what's he saying? That these wicked people, maybe among them we have some good people. Maybe among them we have some people that are worthy, 50 tzaddikim, but the rest of them should be saved as a result. And Hashem says no. He doesn't say, okay, fine, Hashem, you're right. Obviously, you're right. But he pushes even harder, and he says maybe there's 40, maybe 30, and so on, as we know the story. But the idea is that when Avram sees that someone is going to be hurt, someone's going to be killed, Hashem comes and Avram comes to Hashem and says, let's try to help them. Maybe there's a way. Maybe there's some kind of merit redeeming quality. It's not really redeeming quality because it's in the merit of other people, but it's still redeeming quality. Because when you see someone else that is suffering, You don't come to Hashem and say, let's let's. You don't come to Hashem and say, I accept your judgment. If something's going on to yourself, and you say, Hashem, I accepting it, I'm not questioning, and whatever the reason is, even then we should daven for things that are better. But when you see something that's going on by another person, you have to turn to Hashem and say, why? This is not fair. There's got to be some way that we could help him. There's got to be some way that you could forgive him, that you could give him a second chance. So it's not a contradiction to believing in the Eibishter. On the contrary, this is believing in Hashem, where very often Hashem does something and he wants people should push back, should speak the positive about someone else. Should try to find a way to daven for them and say, they shouldn't be punished, they shouldn't have any of these negativities and so on. So what Hashem tells, and this is the Maya, what Hashem tells, Hashem says is, am I concealing from Avraham what I'm about to do? Why is it a problem? Because Avraham is the Avraham Goyim, he's the father of a multitude of nations. And I know that he's the one that's going to command his children and show them they should protect and teach the ways to do tzedakah and mishpat. I can't come to him. He's the one that's going to teach everyone to be justice and do things correctly. I'm going to just go behind his back. No, I have to tell him about it. Now, it's explained in Chassidus that this term, he's going to teach his children to go on the derech, the path of Hashem. This term path has a lot of meaning to it. Because a path, a spiritual path, works the same way as a physical path. When you have a physical path, it takes you from one place to the next, and it connects one place to the other. So maybe a little tiny shtetl somewhere that has no relation with the capital where the king is, but the path combines them. It could be hundreds of miles, but it combines them. And it gets you from point A to point B. They now have a connection. In our service of Hashem, a path, which is the path of Hashem, that gives us that connection between us and Hashem. Now, a path works in two directions. There is us going there, and then there's the return. And now, in our service of the Eibishter, there's also the going and the coming back. There's the part that we do, then there's the return that happens from above. And it's the other way around. Hashem goes down that path to us, and then we in turn, do from our own initiative, our own way back to the Eibishter with our own efforts. But the point here is that even if these two places at both ends of the path are distant from each other, they're still connected through this path. God willing, we'll continue this mimer tomorrow.